Okay, hello, welcome back to another game of chess. Today we are playing against Alekhine's defense. I'm going to play e5 here. Our opponent is going to go across with the knight almost certainly. c4, the knight is going to go back to b6, and we are going to be relentless in playing a4, chasing this pony. Now, two options, d6 or a5. They play a5, allowing me to play the opening coined by international master Emery Tate, rook to a3 here. I have a video on my channel with 1.1 million views, which was awesome. That made me extremely happy when that happened. Covering the game in which Emery Tate first essayed this. We're going to take here on d6, and by the way, due to popular demand, I then made a tutorial on this opening. However, that was nearly 2 years ago now, so let's see how much I can remember. Now, what I know effectively, the very broad brushstrokes approach is that we want this rook on g3. Of course, we want to take on d6 there. I probably should have justified that a little more, but we want this rook on g3. They play g6 to try and stop, you know, the inevitable pressure on g7, and we want to play the move d4. Now, once we've got these two moves prioritized and played, the general idea is going to be to just ruthlessly attack with the h4, h5 idea, with bishop d3, with knight f3, with knight c3, swing in, go for this king. I mean, it seems impossible to resist the allure of h4 straight away. h4 immediately. No regard for the development of any pieces other than two beautiful rooks. I mean, this is a rook's game. The twin tower, they play h6. Okay, we're going to go bishop d3. h6 immediately weakens g6, and this g6 pawn is definitely a focal point for some serious attack. We could even be looking at some kind of sacrifice where we just blow. I mean, I'm so tempted already. In bullet, I would sacrifice this rook straight away. Pawn takes, bishop takes, dislodge the king, get a couple pawns in a dislodged king for a rook. I mean, they can just run the king this way though. We could also sacrifice the bishop to get a couple pawns for the bishop. Tempo on the bishop here on g7, but then they can take like this. I think probably the mature approach is just develop the knight first, wait for a little more information from the position before we do anything too rash. Okay, but now you're just provoking me. Now you're just asking me to sacrifice this bishop, and I really want to do it. Now, this opening is clearly not played by those wishing to play the most objectively sound chess of all time, so I see no reason I tell you. Why not? Sacrifice a bishop, let's blow this up. I don't know, we'll see what happens. We get some tempo. This is definitely, I mean, I'm sure it's either a mistake or a blunder. It could, if it's an inaccuracy, I am going to be over the moon, because an inaccuracy will mean that even objectively speaking, there's actually not that much wrong with this. And I mean, just the psychological component on its own, the weakening of the king side, the fact that the queen side is already in tatters means that this king is now, I mean, this statement, bishop g6, is saying your king will not have anywhere safe to reside for the rest of the game. Now, the safest square is probably going to end up being like d7. They're just going to sit there and hope. But I mean, you know, the tempo we garner here is awesome. That's a move. Apparently. What? Now everything in me is telling me to sack this rook. I mean, I think honestly, we're going to start with the move. Oh, but then h5, maybe bishop f5. I absolutely love, by the way, to be able to play knight e5. Pawn takes, queen h5. Probably the king has to move, and very much can. Out of the diagonal, there's not going to be anything there. Maybe we just drop back with the rook. Maybe coming back to g3 is not the end of the world. And maybe this king has made itself a permanent resident of the king side, or at least a semi-permanent resident of the king side. Yeah, I'm thinking this, there's going to be this, and that's going to hit my knight and my rook. We'll start by dropping back to g3. We need not be overly ambitious here. I can now just develop my knight. We are getting forked, by the way, but I'm very, very happy to... I mean, not forked, sorry, but the knight is able to give me a check. Of course we're not forked. The rook is far, far gone from a1. Knight c3, though, for sure. We're getting pieces up and into the attack. If you play this, by the way, then I'm seriously thinking about this. I guess h5 probably would make a lot of sense as well. But I'm completely okay with putting my king on f1. In fact, a game that I played against Witty Alien saw a very similar idea, not with this whole sacrifice idea, but saw a very similar idea. I was playing black, actually. He was playing white, and he went for this opening. Oh, we got this check here, okay. And the check actually ended up, after a move like king f1, the check on c2 at least, ended up being a mistake, just because of the loss of tempo where I had to come back because of potential rook sack for a bishop, and then the knight would hang or something. But they go like this, meaning they're probably about to take my bishop after king f1, which is a tad annoying. A little annoying. Or they take that pawn. What the hell, man? Honestly, h5 and knight h4 seems completely reasonable here. You don't have any checks like this. Obviously, you could take my bishop at some point, but I guess you could take here as well. I'm playing h5. I'm playing h5. We're going to claim this square. I want knight h4. Knight h4 with the idea potentially that we try to, if bishop h7, go knight here, disconnect the bishop from the knight. If you take, we take with check. The king takes, then we can pick up the knight. There are definitely interesting ideas with trying to remove this bishop, which is the only thing that tethers this knight to the d3 square. And if we see our opponent make a slow move here, like let's say they play rook c8, which looks like a completely reasonable move, knight h4, we might We might be winning. We might, like, you know, clearly it's a bold claim. Our opponent has plenty of development here, but I have the safer king. You're just not going to give me knight h4? Come on, man. Okay, I'm playing knight h4 anyway, because what are you going to do? Take like this and give me a big rook lift and let me play like, I don't know, rook f3 and pin this up? Okay. I mean, if you take the knight here, which actually could be necessary, by the way. That could be a necessary move. We then have the activity, but we have knight here. No? We also have this, by the way. Hold on. Let me just take a sip of my creatine monohydrate infused beverage. We have this. I take here. You take, I take here. I'm very, very tempted by that. You know what? I think we are going to go for this. Knight g6 could be more accurate, but I think taking this knight here, getting the 2 pieces for the rook, but most importantly, if you want to take, you have to get rid of that light square bishop, as we see. The lack of the light squared bishop now. I mean, I would have basically sacked that rook for the light squared bishop on its own. The fact that I can actually do so, such that I now have a knight in a pawn, and it's with tempo on this. Hold on, I kind of think I'm winning now. I must be winning. Look at the state of this king. We go check. If you go here, we can go check. There is at the very, very least, I think, a draw here. Because if here, surely you don't want to go back to here. I mean, maybe you do. But we just beeline for e6 with a knight, right? It's easier said than done, I guess. We could start with knight here. It would seem a wasted opportunity not to go queen g6. We're going to go for this. They do come up here. Now, I can go check. The king's here. And we've effectively got the move queen f5 for free. I do not want to allow the king this way. At that point, it becomes sincerely... Is sincerely the right word there? I don't know. It becomes much harder to attack that king. So we are going to go queen f5. After the king goes back here, which is the only legal move, you can see that from this position, we basically played queen f5 and then got another move. So that, I think, makes some sense. The queen is now more involved in the action. We could play d5. Hold this square. If one of my knights could access this, I would be over the moon right now. Also just this straight away. This straight away with tempo, we back up and then eventually do this. Okay, we're going here. Do you know why? Because there's a bishop keeping an eye on h6. There's a bishop keeping an eye on h6 right now. It also allows us knight e6, hopefully quite quickly. If you move the rook across here, like let's say you go up to h7, knight f4 and you go back here, then we go check and it's got to be GG. What the hell is that? Okay, I mean, now we could take this with the bishop, but we could also play knight f4. I don't see a good reason not to take with this first. Maybe there's this. Well, this is stressful. Takes here. Check. No, you're lying. Bishop h6. e6. Check. The bishop's pinned. If you want to take that, you got to take with the pawn. Queen h7, bishop g7, queen here's mate. No. Oh my lord. Bishop h6. I dare you to play this. Check. We're going into h7. Oh, this is disgusting. Oh, this is disgusting. Oh, this is so disgusting. This is so nasty. The only move's to block with the bishop, and that is checkmate. Okay, so here we are in the analysis, and this is the story of... I mean, I could have drawn this graph out before I even saw it. A reasonable, well-played opening. At the point where we sacrificed the bishop, it clearly wasn't that ideal, but we create an environment. We take our opponent, as Mikhail Nehemievich Tal said, into a deep, dark forest, where 2 + 2 = 5, and the path out is only wide enough for 1. Hopefully I've got that verbatim. Actually, it's clearly not verbatim. He spoke that in Russian, I would assume. Anyway, but we create that situation where it's difficult for our opponent to play, and then seemingly... Let's go through that game. I'm so happy right now. So, e4, knight f6, we push again, we push once more, thrice we push. We'll turn on the master's database as well. And we hear that the top move is in fact rook a3. This is called, by the way, the Tate variation, which was not the case before my viral video with 1.1 million views on that opening. So, without wanting to be too hubristic here, is that actually a word? I know hubris is a word. Is hubristic a word? I'm going to go with it. I genuinely think this is because of my video. I genuinely think so. Anyway, rook a3, top move, played in 6 master games with 3 draws and 3 wins for white. White has never lost this at master level. And after d6, we take, and then after takes, we play rook g3 is the best move. We play d4, I clearly remember my stuff. And here, h4 is one of the best moves. The fact that you can have this position with these pawns pushed with a rook on g3 and playing h4, and this and this be a reasonable position is just unbelievably ridiculous, and means, of course, I'm going to play it. Now, a lot of people go for h5 here, trying to prevent h5 myself. Opponent went for h6, where you see my advantage start to slightly grow. Of course, I threw all that away in a second, but the point is that if I go h5, they can play g5. So instead, I go bishop d3, another good move. And after knight c6, knight f3, knight here, I should have just played knight c3. You know, I should have just played knight c3, developed. If they'd chosen to take and take, bishop f5, queen e2, we have a decent position. There's still exciting attacking chances. However, absolutely not. We play bishop takes g6, a red brilliancy, taking on g6, and this was actually, king f7 was a great response from our opponent. Dropping back to g3 was the best move. Had I gone for h5, we would have seen bishop f5. At this point, I developed the knight. They could probably cash in on this, although still it's kind of risky. To take this pawn, I mean, they could have gone back to e8 and been completely fine, but if they'd taken the pawn, I mean, maybe there's knight h4 and we slip in here. Or if the king goes here, I don't know, queen h5, for instance. But I don't want to see that. We drop the rook back. They go bishop here. Knight c3. The check. King f1. They take here. And I play h5. Now h5 is inaccurate, but creates some very interesting ideas. I should have played knight h2. Their best move was queen d7. Okay. I mean, pawns are hanging. Things are looking exciting over here. I can completely understand them not playing queen d7 here. Maybe queen d7 to play like bishop g4 and h5 and just not allow me to like escape this way. But after they take, h5 was very nice. Knight h2 to play, I don't exactly know what. Oh, sorry, I guess knight h2 just serves the function that this, you know, this knight is now hanging. However, we do this and we try and do kind of vaguely the same thing with a blunder here, which does not seem to be a blunder at all. This seems to be consolidating. This seems to be preparing rook g8. Alas, knight h4. You go back with the bishop. I'm going to take that, baby. They instead should have taken here with tempo on my queen. And then after takes, queen b3, we hit both. And you've got to play bishop e6 because this is also hanging. And then we can take. And you've got two bishops for two knights. And somehow the king's now fine. That makes sense. Again, difficult to see. Opponent drops back instead. We take, we take. They move back with the knight. Queen g6, queen f5. The knight comes in here. I mean, we're swarming in on these weak light squares. And the rook comes across, allowing me to take here. The best move instead would have been to play rook g8. I was a little surprised they didn't. Just because, I mean, maybe the king could even dream of running this way, or like you play, okay, not queen here because of the knight, but you could maybe sacrifice at some point. You know, in this position, our opponent is up a rook for a knight and a pawn, so if they could perhaps sack the rook for a knight and a pawn somehow, it could make sense. Bishop h6 here, then queen d7, and they look to trade the queens. However, after rook here, bishop here, we're slicing the diagonal, everything's held. E6 is a blunder. And I only played this because I thought our opponent is probably going to play e6 here. They should be looking to trade the queens. Instead, e6, we go check. A beautiful, beautiful move, opening up the infiltration on the weak light squares with the absolutely decimated king side, such that after they take, we go queen h7 and they resign because bishop g7 and checkmate will follow. Never allowing this king to run. Disgusting stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. This was a really fun game. I'm glad to have got another win with this awesome opening, however dubious the sacrifice was. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.